The final round of Dizzy Dummies in Series 1 Episode 8 contained very strong competitors. The 4 of them were competing for the final 3 spots in the last Wipeout Zone of the series, which meant one of them was going to be eliminated. James the Undertaker was the fastest in the qualifier, the last man standing on the sweeper, the first across the donut run, and an overall very strong athlete, performing amazing skills before the competition. Gymnast Martin almost cleared the bigger balls in amazing fashion, was the runner-up in all 3 of the previous rounds, and was a gymnast, an athletic discipline that transfers heavily to the obstacles on Total Wipeout. Generally full sent in the first round, won the first round of Dizzy Dummies, and showed that he was very determined to come out victorious in this competition. Professor Chris energetically got through the qualifier, and was able to scrape through the multiplayer rounds by clutching many of the last spots each time. When the round started, Lee rushed out like he normally does, and finished the barrel crossing first. Professor Chris was next to make it to the center, but James followed and dashed across the second set bravely, becoming the second to finish the obstacle. Chris was advancing to the end, while Martin was all the way back at the center. As a last-ditch effort, he strided along the 3 barrels, switching lanes, making it to the final platform, but unable to get up to claim his spot in the Wipeout Zone. While he was struggling, Chris took advantage of the situation and beat Martin to the finish line. Lee, James, and Chris went on to make an amazing Wipeout Zone performance. But what if Martin was one of the first 3 competitors to clear the barrel crossing and make it to the Wipeout Zone? Which of the 3 finalists would he replace? Which obstacles would he clear in the Wipeout Zone? What would his time be, and what place would he get? In this video, I will attempt to answer these questions. First up, which finalist Martin would eliminate? The answer to this question is rather obvious: Professor Chris. Not only was Chris the last person to finish in the former 2 rounds of Dizzy Dummies, but he was also who got the final spot for the Wipeout Zone. If Martin were to complete the barrel run, he would have gotten 3rd place instead of Chris. Next, which obstacles would he clear in the Wipeout Zone? Personally, I think he would get a perfect run. As a gymnast, he must have great balance and agility that would serve him well on this course. However, Kieran, from the previous episode, was also a gymnast, but he slipped after the rolling bean. I think that Martin would avoid a mistake like this, though. As you saw in the 3rd round of Dizzy Dummies, he was nearly able to make an insane come-from-behind crossing. Even though he wasn't successful, it's better than a lot of people were able to do in similar situations. For example, Bogeyman Phil from Series 3 Episode 6 attempted a very similar feat in the final round of Dizzy Dummies, but he ended up falling into the water due to the stress of the situation. Martin didn't fall in, but only got stuck on the final platform. Another example of nerves getting to the competitor is when Wiggly Wiggly Andy missed a wide-open dismount in Series 4 Episode 9, costing him a Champions of Champions spot. Martin showed that he could handle the pressure, therefore I think it's unlikely for him to make a silly mistake. Finally, I'll try to predict his time. This is a tough category because so little of his run in the qualifier was shown. For comparison purposes, I'm going to assume that he failed both sets of the topple towers, the sucker punch, and the wall swing. I'm also going to assume that James the Undertaker failed both sets of the topple towers and the sucker punch. Martin got a time of 1 minute 51 seconds, which is 14 seconds slower than James' time of 1 minute 37 seconds. If they did fail the same obstacles, this is a pretty considerable speed difference. James took 87% as long as Martin did in the course, so this logic would assume that Martin would get a time of 1 minute 28 seconds in the Wipeout Zone compared to James' 1 minute 16 seconds. We must keep in mind that determination is a factor. We saw this come into play when Great Scott upped his game in the Champion Special, and when Crime Scene James went almost 3 times faster on his second Wipeout Zone run than he did on his first one. Since James the Undertaker was the front run of the episode, Martin's determination would only be fueled so that he can beat James. Along with this, he showed how determined he was at the end of Dizzy Dummies when he took a big risk to pass Chris. I think this factor would shrink the predicted 10-second gap of these times between James and Martin. I'm going to make a final prediction of 1 minute 20 seconds, which still doesn't beat James but is very close. Assuming that Martin would run first like Chris did, this time would be the new speed record, breaking Jonathan's speed record of 1 minute 22 seconds, but it would get broken again in the very next run. Thank you for watching this video. If you have your own opinion about how Gymnast Martin would do in the Wipeout Zone, comment below.